Yep, should be on Facebook and YouTube. I got the ticks. I got the ticks from StreamYard.
That sounds like it's working. That was pretty fast. Although I don't see it yet.
Go to Facebook. Let's have a look. Oops.
Oh, there we are. I got it.
All right. Where's Uncle Spencer? He normally comes on. He might be joining us. Right. Let's get this going. Right. Get my notes. Right. So, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. We record this normally every Friday at around 8:30 Pacific Standard Time in the morning, AM. And I've got a small, but as I normally say, a small but powerful panel. We've had a lot of people bunking off. It is the holidays, listeners and viewers. What is the show about? The show is a very tongue-in-cheek look at the world of WordPress and tech in general. And I've got a panel that I think are up for it. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. It won't take too long. And then we're going to be straight into it. So, Chris, my beloved friend, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers, Chris?
Yeah, I'm Chris from Lifter LMS, which is a learning management system for WordPress. Also have a podcast for course creators and WordPress LMS professionals called LMS Cast.
And Chris is a real him and his wife and family, they're all outdoorish types. And I just love following your adventures on Facebook. You roam in some wilderness area of America with your family, Chris. It's just lovely. So, John, my friend John, would you like to introduce yourself, John?
Yeah, I'm John Locke from Lockdown Design and SEO. So that's what, yeah.
All right, that was short and sweet, but there we go.
Yeah,
Before we go in, we're going to have another panelist joining us soon, Uncle Spencer. He's having some technical troubles. But before we go into the main stories of the week, I want to talk about our great sponsors. Our major sponsor, Custos, is if you're looking to get into podcasting for yourself or for a client, you need somewhere to host your audio files and also produce the RSS feed and a host of other small things. I was using another provider that provides all that for about 4 years. Custos came on my radar. Other services, they start hitting you hard if you're successful in podcasting, i.e. your numbers start going up. Custos has got that great platform where you're not penalized for being successful. They've got one flat rate. It looked good. I decided to sign up, and then I learned that Matt Medeiros of the Mac Report was going to become their head of sales and customer experience. And I thought if it was good enough for him, I made the right choice. It's been fantastic. They are a great company. I highly recommend them if you're looking to get into podcasting, like I said, for yourself or for clients. Another sponsor is PeachPay. PeachPay, if you're looking to get payments up and running really, really quick for yourself or for a client with WooCommerce, look at PeachPay because it's free. It's really easy to get set up and you'll be up and running in half hour to an hour at the most. So go and have a look at peachpay.app. I thank both sponsors for their support. We've also got Uncle Spencer joining us. Uncle Spencer, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Spencer Foreman from I'm Late to the WP-Tonic.com.
You naughty individual, but there we go. We're going to go straight.
I was sitting in the Andrew Palmer hot tub, just so you know.
You told me he told me he was playing golf.
Andrew Palmer and I share the inflatable Intex hot tub pre-COVID solution. I'm sure Chris has his own version of this at home, but pre-COVID, you popped it up, put some air in it, $500 later every morning. It's like being reborn. And sometimes
I'm not sure if I want that vision in my mind, you and Andrew in a hot tub. I'm not sure. Right,
I was talking to Andrew the other day, and the two of us were in our inflatable hot tubs crossing the Atlantic talking. And I think that's where all meetings should start.
Can I get a link to that, Spencer, when you have a
Yes,
sec?
it is the Intex inflatable hot tub. Now,
you could do me a favor, Spencer. You could actually post something in the WP.
I'm going to do that. I'm just
in the WP-Tonic Facebook group. There we go. So let's go into story one. WordCamp US online set for October. October the 1st, 2021, as community team weighs proposal for returning to in-person WordCamps. These tavern stories, is it me or they're getting worse? So, Chris, what did you think of the article? And they seem to be having a lot of problems. There seems to be some complaints about things in general, about how this has been organised. And what's your thoughts about it, Chris?
Well, I've helped organize WordCamps before and participated in meetups. I haven't done the big national ones. I mean, I've attended, but not organized. It's a tough job, and it requires a lot of volunteers. And if it's going to happen, it just needs to run smooth, especially with all the volunteer input and throwing in the challenges of the pandemic. I will say what I like most about this is actually there's kind of like a flowchart engineering style diagram of if this, then that, yes, no. This, when you have something like this actually shows a fully baked process. And I like that. I think that's what we need. That's not just for WordCamps, but events and public policy when it comes to, navigating the future here. And we can always challenge the model, but I think these kinds of models are helpful to kind of take the emotion out of it. And let's look at the facts and how these facts are different in different areas. And with WordPress being a conservative organization when it comes to public safety, I think that it's smart for them to have this. And I'll say also that there has been, a lot of online event fatigue and whatnot. And also I've just noticed in general across my friends and colleagues, a lot of people have had challenges with burnout and they're just it's been a tough year and a half, and getting some more community back is important, but we also want to do it in a way where everybody feels safe and the process of how that happens is well thought through.
Yeah, funny enough, I've been on a really I'm not going to go into the details. Some of my friends know I've had quite a journey the past year, health wise and mostly around my health, but I've been on a strict diet and exercise regime, and I never felt more. It's been a long time since I felt so fit and energized, really, Chris. So I think getting out, and you do it, getting out in the open, doing physical exercise, controlling your diet, these are all important things that will contribute to your mental health and your ability to compete with these pressures. So, Spencer, I've always had, it's one of these things, because I'm known as, I think I'm now known as Mr. Grumpy in WordPress.
Yeah.
I've always held a grudge about how I used to really enjoy going down to San Francisco to the World WordCamp US, and then we're just going to close it. Oh, by the way, there's not going to be a WordCamp in San Francisco because we know that it would be a competitor. We're just going to close it all down. It's never gone down that well with me, how that decision was just made and there was no real discussion about it. But I suppose I'm whinging again, aren't I, Spencer?
Well, I first of all, I wouldn't call you Mr. Grumpy. I would call you Mr. Choo-choo has left the track on certain subjects. But I think after a certain age, you're entitled Like that, my favorite Seinfeld episode is the one where George pretends that he's a marine biologist and he's describing what happened with him rescuing the whale. And he's like, the sea was angry that day, like an old man ordering soup at a deli. Well, I'm that old man. You're that old man. Maybe Chris and John aren't that old man, but you're going to get there. And the idea is that these things are annoying. But here's how I actually would suggest I'm going to do something about it. Okay. I've been asked in the past to attend local word camps, and they had them in Lincoln Park and other things. In the current state of the world, I don't see anything bad about a word camp, but I do see that I am personally not in agreement with what Automatic is doing as the thought leader for this thing. So my push, I'm going on record again, is to align all the various makers, and each one of you know I've spoken to you and I'll be speaking to you again, to get together in a collaborative way, because we, the makers, can decide what is best for this platform. And I now also have access to all the customers through the makers and through my own efforts, so that we don't need to, and I'm not trying to say, look at you, Automatic. I'm saying we don't need to take the advice for open source software of what the VCs and Automatic say, because we can act as benevolent owners of our own work product and our own audience. And if that means that we end up as a consequence having an association of some kind that has its own events and so on and so forth, the natural conclusion is those could be slightly different in focus and otherwise from what's currently been the state of affairs, which I'm not being critical, but like when you get a bunch of people randomly together ad hoc for a picnic, it doesn't really work out the same way as when you get them together other ways.
The whole thing of it moving to bloody December and having it held in some godforsaken, frigid place that you freeze your arse off.
After the Yoast's pre-COVID shenanigans and all the other stuff, one needs to just ask themselves, do you really feel that it could be done better by a more focused group of people who are actually the people making the stuff? And in my opinion, that's where my effort is going to be going. And you'll hear more from me about that. And it's not a threat. And it's not any kind of it's not taking anything from anyone else. It's simply saying, you know what, like, I feel like this would be something that the right kind of mindset, the right kind of people collaborating could do a much better job, like some of those other SaaS companies do for their events and so forth.
So John, I know the Sacramento WordCamp tried to fill that void that was left with the San Francisco one not happening for a number of years. And obviously you got the Orange County and then you got the LA. So there are word camps in the West Coast, but the center of technology, San Francisco, the Bay Area, Northern California, since 2014, there hasn't been a word camp apart, I think it's kind of semi-disgraceful myself. But am I just a grumpy old geezer?
Yeah, I think it's a little odd that there hasn't been a word camp there in 7 years. I mean, that's like a huge city. It's where Automatic is based. Their headquarters is there. There's a lot of people who work on WordPress that are there. It's a little odd.
I can understand them suspending it for a couple of years, so it was clearly not a direct competitor to WordCamp US. I could understand that, but they've not really, I'm only surmising this, they haven't allowed a regional one to get established since that decision, and it just hasn't gone down well with me. It's another thing that pisses me off, basically. Can you understand it, John?
Yeah, I totally get it. And, I can see like some people wanting to go to a word camp and physically see people face to face. I don't know that that's a good idea right now with the Delta variant of COVID jumping off.
Well, in good sense, I've been double vaccinated. Why anybody wouldn't be, you know, it's their decision. But I'm going to be honest with the listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
You know, for God's sake, if you haven't got vaccinated, go and get it done.
Yeah.
You know, and those that won't, I just feel you're bonkers.
And yeah, like I said, I mean, I know somebody from my hometown that's died from this who was like 4 years younger than me. I know people who have it right now that have been sick for a month. I mean, so it's deadly serious. You know, maybe this isn't the year for in-person stuff, and this last couple of years especially has been tough. You know, there's been a lot of things going on in the U.S. just overall. You know, if and when, like, you know, I should say when, because I'm sure that there will be in-person WordCamps eventually, but I think that there needs to be some more organization to these as well, and it's been volunteer based in the past for sure. But I think that there need to be like other things in place when people are thinking about things like, you know, as far as like security and if there's like some sort of you know, terroristic thing that like jumps off like January 6th.
Well, you say that.
By the way, why not just send everybody for $500 a link to buy an Intex hot tub, and we can all just have a virtual meetup from our own hot tubs recorded, because there have been some successful conferences in the last year where multi-person, and I believe Andrew or Vito organized that gigantic one about 10 months ago. Like, why do we need to be in person anyway? Because the only things we've seen come from in-person meetups in WordPress is misogyny and bad behavior and drunkenness and all kinds of aggravation. Like, do any of us really need to be in person? I mean, I know Chris years now, and John years now, and Jonathan, my God, we were in the war together, and I've never met you in person, and I haven't suffered
every time you get close, you avoid us meeting. But there we go.
I saved your life in the war, and I didn't even do it in person.
But I just want to say, I actually think face-to-face conferences still are important. I actually am going to MicroConf in Portland on the September the 15th. If you're into Bootstrap community and WordPress, I suggest go to the MicroConf website. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And I could be also speaking at the conference. That's not been confirmed yet, but I definitely will be attending there. And Rob and his team will be there. And they've got some fabulous speakers. And it's just going to be a cool day with entrepreneurs in the Bootstrap community. So do consider coming up to Portland and joining us. So I just thought I'd mention that, being that I'm a supporter of Rob, a great guy, basically. So let's go on to the next story. NDA expired. I like this one. NDA expired. Let's spill the beans on a weird startup. Yeah, say that again. What did you think of this one, Uncle Spencer?
I find it interesting. Before WordPress, I was in the SaaS space with a company that was funded by a billionaire. And when billionaires were a rare thing, and they essentially gave me carte blanche and my partner carte blanche to do what we wanted. They realized that two guys from Chicago given carte blanche and an unlimited REST platform.
That wasn't the brightest idea, was it?
Where they were doing freemium was maybe not such a good idea for the investors, because two dudes in a van outside the football stadium were selling hot dogs and beers to everybody. And they were selling nothing for $100 million. The next company, after we were unceremoniously removed from the parking lot, wanted all of our knowledge. So they insisted, for some reason, even they were a London company, to send us out to California to talk to their Silicon Valley attorney. Now, some of you know I'm an attorney in my former life.
I would have loved to have been a fly on that wall.
Just let me weave it into the story. The point is, as an attorney versus a real life business person, I never do contracts because I know as an attorney, all contracts is a way to, hoist yourself by your own petard, essentially, sailor's term, and hang yourself. And that's what essentially happened. This company paid thousands of dollars to their attorney, flew me out to meet their attorney, put together some 50-page contract of all the things that I couldn't do and what they had to do for me. Well, at the end of the day, Facebook came along and ended that social network market. And the contract with me meant that the last year and a half of me being paid full price was me not doing anything for them because of their own attorney. So the long story short is NDAs are the worst example of nonsense. If you really feel you've got the secret to anti-gravity or something else, then make threats to people's families or hire some guys in black suits. But NDAs are ridiculous. And the fact that they expire mean that like now you've got these funny stories that come out after, the end of the fact. So I know there will be attorneys who would argue otherwise, but like, look at all the litigation that goes on over contractual disputes that ends after 6 years of the lawyers getting all the money.
People don't. I totally agree with you. Actually, what people, I'm going to put this over to Chris in a second, but people, some ideas do get stolen. There is industrial espionage. It's a fact, but it's a very, very small. And what people don't realise is there's thousands of ideas out there. It's not having the idea, it's executing the idea. That's the difficult bloody thing to do in an effective way. What do you reckon? Chris?
Well, just to give context to the listener, the watcher, this is a story about a company that paid people to misrepresent that they were actually looking for a job, go inside of a hiring conversation and like kind of in a backhanded way pitch certain products. So first, I'm a big fan of guerrilla marketing. So part of me was like cheering for this like initiative here, but I'm not okay with it because it does two things. It's one thing to do guerrilla marketing and like put your stuff in somebody else's traffic flow or try to be sneaky and just do what it takes. I mean, you have to tooth and claw for your first customers and to scale sometimes, but to like boldface, like misrepresent who you are, I'm not okay with that. And then number two is they're actually hurting the legitimate people that should have been in that seat in that job interview. So because of those two reasons, I'm not okay with the tactic. However,
but
guerrilla marketing.
If it was just a marketing, we've all, I wouldn't say shady, but there's always some grey marketing. But as a total business model,
it's a little too advanced. Right? I mean, I've been. Even before I worked in tech, I've done a lot of hiring and I've had people I like, that person is doing secret shopper on our interview process. I can just tell. And I'm sure sometimes I couldn't tell, but, and I see it. Sometimes people are kind of misrepresenting themselves to like pitch stuff all the time. But yeah, like you said, to have this be the main business model of a primary marketing strategy to get in front of CEOs and HR execs, I got to give them credit for that because when you hire somebody, those are very expensive decisions. They're super important. And often like pretty high level people at a company are going to be involved in that last interview because the hiring is so crucial. So I got to give them credit for like getting to the decision maker. That's just not the right way to do it.
Yeah. What do you reckon, John? I just love this story. It typifies so much, doesn't it, John?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of brilliant in a way. But am I on speaker?
You're getting a little bit of echo.
A little choppy on your connection.
Yeah, sure.
We hear you. But you're echoing.
You are too.
Oh, it's cleared up now.
Okay.
I'm not getting echo.
Okay. So anyway, the idea of going in and planting the seed of the idea that one product is better than the other, it seems to work. And truth be known, I think that there have been campaigns like that we've seen in retrospect. But like Chris said, I don't think it's a good idea to go in and market your product this way. Sure, it will get in the brain of the people who are making decisions, and they keep hearing the name of that product, but at some point it's going to set off the alarm in your head, like, this person is not really like what they seem, because they're declining these jobs. But it's a good idea. It's just ethically bankrupt on a lot of levels.
I like that. You put that well, actually. We're going to go for our break, listeners and viewers. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. As Spencer will love this, we've got a small but powerful panel. We've got some good stories. I think I've rustled up something. Oh, on to this one. WooCommerce 5.52 fixes performance issues found after full security up. I'm so deflated, listeners and viewers. We had Chris Lemmer on the show last week, and I thought I found Mr. Grumpy here, Mr. WordPress Grumpy, found an optimistic story, upbeat, and then we find out it wasn't all so upbeat. What do you reckon, Uncle Spencer? I'm a bit deflated.
Yeah, I was just looking to see what the difference was. I didn't get a chance to do it, but so it seems like just yesterday, last Friday, we were talking about how WooCommerce found and changed like 4 letters in one line of code that, cured this leftover thing. But I'll admit to you, and I know Chris can speak to this as well, because Thomas and I were chatting about this stuff. Code is a relationship in and of itself. And you say something to somebody that's well-intentioned, you think it's going to make them happy, especially your better half. Next thing you know, you're in the doghouse. So if you have a security patch, you're solving one problem, sometimes creating another problem. But the good news is, and I think that's where, when people ask me about WooCommerce, I'm like, here's the difference. If this was Squarespace or, Shopify, they would have all the same problems and more, but you would never know about it. It would be happening without your awareness. So for the open source transparency, I'm grateful. And as a developer who builds off of WooCommerce especially, I'm grateful for how many people that are involved in this, that you get 38,000 people involved in doing something in like 1 hour. It's fantastic.
It's just deflating, really. I'll say what, I thought I found and Chris Lemmer handled it so well, didn't he? He is polished, isn't he? And it was so upbeat. And then, the truth comes out. Oh, over to you, Chris. What did you think of this story?
First of all, I'm a huge WooCommerce fan. We sell our software with WooCommerce. Our technology integrates with it as well. If you're using WooCommerce for courses and membership sites, my hat's off to the WooCommerce team for doing a couple things. One is they have an active security research program, which is something we have at LifterLMS as well. So companies like BugCrowd and HackerOne have security researchers who are investigating. The very few WordPress companies do this, I should say first. We do, WooCommerce does, and this is how these security vulnerabilities are found and fixed, which is awesome. And it's done well, and it actually, like Spencer was saying, all this stuff is public, so it seems like there's more going on here. All this stuff is going on with other companies too. It's just not, their laundry's not hanging out in the public like in open source software. So this is all just good stuff and maturing. But as somebody who's rolled out a lot of updates, you fix one thing, like my co-founder will say, and then something else unforeseen, even though you have all these tests and stuff. Okay, now we got something else over here we got to jump on. And this is really the biggest reason why, if you ever get frustrated with a company about like, hey, they say they've got this feature rolling out or this thing, sometimes stuff like this comes up and then you got to shift focus and other things come in too. But for me, I don't see this as deflating. It's more just this is a mature company. Just they have the same problem too. You fix one thing and something else pops up somewhere else.
Yeah. What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I think it's really, I mean, it's impressive that they're able to.
Is he frozen?
He's frozen.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
we need...
It's impressive. It's impressive that they're able to roll this out, because the thing with open source WordPress, and you mentioned Shopify or Squarespace, you'd never know that there was this sort of issue, but there's generally one type of configuration with some visual presentation things that are different. Maybe some third-party plugins for Squarespace, but with WooCommerce, there's a lot more variation. There's people running themes that are, from Theme Forest, that are some that are using Gutenberg blocks, some that are using 50 plugins, some that are using only a handful of plugins. So making sure that that code all works together flawlessly, or at least that WooCommerce holds up its end and works in a stable means, I think that's pretty impressive. I also think that's very impressive that Lifter LMS and WooCommerce and a small number of other WordPress companies have an active security campaign where they're seeking vulnerabilities to seal them up. So
yeah, that's great.
Kudos, Chris.
Thanks.
Yep, thanks. All right, let's go on to the next story. Is Robinhood really democratizing finance? So, Spencer, Robinhood, we had this incident when a group of individuals were pushing and they got into a bit of trouble and they got fined, didn't they? But I think Robinhood is, first of all, if you could tell the listeners and viewers what Robinhood is quickly, and then can you I think it's a two-edged sword. I think it is something interesting and new, but it also could be rather dangerous in some ways. First of all, what is Robinhood, and what's your views of this particular story?
Robinhood is a commission-free investing tool, like many others in the past, so that amateur people can just use a nice, clean interface to get involved in things like stocks and also cryptocurrencies. But it turned out to be controversial for a couple things that they did unusually, which is, number one, in the past, they had artificially limited access for people to trade certain stocks at a point where there was a lot of heavy trading. They were controversial for some of the ways that they had taken advantage of naive people who were kids or teenagers or otherwise, because they didn't know exactly what they're getting into. And then finally, there's been some allegations here and there, but with their IPO that, it's an okay tool, but the promises of what they're doing are not as great as the reality because of some of the things that I just mentioned, which is like when you really need to do a trade sometimes and they are not making it possible to have real-time trading or something artificial. That's kind of the whole point. Sort of like insurance is hypothetical until you crash your car, then you really need a good insurance policy. So from that standpoint, I think that it was a great idea, but there are other better tools. I mean, honestly, I have cryptocurrency in Robinhood simply because I put in $75 before all this drama happened for my 17-year-old to get involved. And then all this stuff happened and I couldn't get the money out. And so I put him over on Webull, which is a competitor. But in the meantime, I dumped the $75 into, thankfully, Dogecoin.
Dogecoin. Oh, you're not with Tether. You're not that bonkers.
No, I mean, Dogecoin went up to like 60 cents or something. Now it's more like 25 or something. But the point is, I feel satisfied that it wasn't like as annoying that I couldn't get my money out. But the fact that they said the first $75, $80 I put in, I couldn't get out. I thought that was kind of like, yeah.
I tell you, the cryptocurrency. I did a little thing about Tether, basically saying that and I put it on YouTube. and I said that they were a bunch of villains and arseholes that run it. And to talk about, I got to say they're more rabid than the WordPress community would be an understatement. I actually got some death threats for that particular video it sent to me. And what can I say to the people that sent them to me? You go and have a go at me. Try and do it, you fuckers. See what kind of response you get, you maggots.
I mean, it's just a rapper. It's just a rapper like any other rapper. I mean, in the past, well, now even if you want to buy cryptocurrencies, you can go to an intermediary that, you know, is a transfer agent and stuff. There's plenty of online tools. So I think it's kind of, there's nothing magical about it. It's just a way to do what you got to do versus paying a traditional broker like an E-Trade or something like that, or, you know, Shearson Lehman. The IPO thing is besides the point, because it's like that Color. Remember there was that app Color, and then there's also, we were talking about obviously WeWork. The behavior of the founders oftentimes is not in alignment with the promise of why this is so unique. You know, if you look at it as just a software wrapper around trading, it's fine. Nobody's going to argue.
Yeah,
but they're trying
package, isn't it?
They're trying to say, you know, peace and love, and everybody will be free to, you know, do this. And I don't know that that's really true.
No. What do you reckon, John? Because I think it has helped people cut the costs, and it's more convenient. There are some benefits, aren't they, John? But there's also a lot of baggage, isn't it, and other concerns, isn't it, John?
Yeah, I mean, most recently with this thing with the GameStop and the AMC and BlackBerry and some of these other stocks that people were basically trying to drive up the price to basically hurt the hedge funds. You know, this article, the tagline says, is it democratizing public or democratizing trading? I mean, obviously it's not, because what it started doing when people were not backing off of their positions is it was limiting trading. It was limiting that to make it go down.
Well, they got a phone call from the real people that control the economy. They got a phone call, didn't they, John?
I mean, and this article also says that, like, you know, it suggests that the people using it are not sophisticated. You know, that wasn't really the point. They weren't trying to make money off of GameStop. They were trying to hurt the hedge funds. That's what they were trying to do. I think they're more sophisticated than the article maybe gives credit for. It wasn't just about, you know, how can we, you know, screw the market. It was like, how can we screw the people manipulating the market that, you know, put us in the financial crisis 13 years ago. So,
Chris, what I think one of the factors that people who have not got an enormous amount of knowledge or got scars of experience don't understand is a lot of these stocks and other financial, cryptocurrency, whatever, is if they're in markets without a large capitalization, they're very easy to manipulate with pump and drop schemes. It's endemic. It's all over the place, isn't it? What do you think?
I have a bunch of thoughts on this one. Yeah, well, first, I just want to take my hat off to Spencer and what he was doing with his kids. Learning finance and investing by doing finance and investing is like a sorely missing skill from the traditional education system. Yeah. So the fact that one of the ways Robinhood does democratize is the ability to buy fractional shares. If you try to get a share of Amazon or Tesla and you're looking at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, whatever it is, it's just not accessible. But if you're being smart and you're like, okay, I think people are going to do at-home ordering. I want to get a little Amazon and build my investment portfolio. Even if I only have $500 or $100 to get started, I can do that with Robinhood. And yeah, it's gamified and fun and stuff. And that's one of the ways they say it preys on people is because it's kind of got a lot of gamification built in to make it kind of addicting and trigger the dopamine and stuff like that. I don't fault a software creator for like trying to make the app fun. But buyer beware. There's no such thing as, easy money, get rich quick. I mean, those things, like somebody can
Well,
make
there
a lot of
is,
money.
but I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But there is. But I found when you get easy money, it's really easy also to lose it.
100%. That's the hard part, but I don't think it's necessarily Robinhood's fault if our society is not helping kids and adults and fully grown adults not treat it like a wild casino. At least if they don't understand, they can make that choice. Like, I'm going to YOLO in on Doge and put, my entire life savings on Dogecoin or whatever. But I will say, I think it's going to be really interesting times. You've got things like, and one more quick note on Robinhood, the fact that the founders wanted to retain more voting rights in their IPO, I don't fault them for that. Sharing the future, the equity, but like if they're trying to maintain control of the company by Class A, Class B shares, I kind of get that from a founder perspective because I'm happy to share the equity, but I don't want to have equality in the decision making. Like it kind of makes sense since you've been like building the company your whole life or whatever. But then the interesting part just comes down to the future of finance, where macroeconomics and crypto are emerging, and you've got things like, the old school, the TD Ameritrades, the new school, like the Robinhoods. You've got crypto and decentralized exchanges like Uniswap, PancakeSwap, SushiSwap. You've got the ones that are centralized like Coinbase, Gemini, Binance. Everything that's going on in the economy right now and how tokenization and equity and finance and debt and everything's working, it's going to be a wild ride the next 5 to 10 years. So I'm just excited to see how it goes.
I agree with you there because I've been very critical of cryptocurrency, but not for the basic idea, because I actually think the actual idea and the technology behind the idea, there is something to it. It's just the utter scammy people.
But aren't people scamming with regular?
That have been attracted to it, like flies on.
It happens in any economy, though. Like
but there's something.
It happens with the U.S. dollar too.
Jonathan, you're gonna be freaked out because I was having my meeting with Luke today, and he follows cryptocurrency, and he suggested that there was a news article that Amazon is looking for a top dog to hire to be in charge of cryptocurrency, which, read between the lines, means that Amazon seems to be contemplating taking cryptocurrency.
Well,
now,
he needs that money to get the rocket to Mars, doesn't he?
When Amazon starts taking cryptocurrency, game open, game over, game whatever, because it's going to be like the Hoover Dam blowing up and the real Colorado River coming in for the value of certain cryptocurrencies, but also for all the other things that come about when they get past that mainstream problem. Because Amazon has
I think Amazon are at the peak. Their glory days are over because
what are you talking about? Look at their
Prime. Look at their Prime service. I don't get anything in 2 days anymore. If I get it in 2 weeks, I'm lucky.
Oh my God! I order Amazon every day, and I order it like against my sometimes better feelings, but from the standpoint of where the world really is versus where I want it to be. It's like the Matrix when Joe Pantoliano or whatever says, I know the steak isn't real, but I love it anyway. Well, Amazon isn't going away. And if Amazon, with its absolute penetration in everything, takes cryptocurrency, the cryptocurrency thing is going to blow up. And if it becomes mainstream, there's actually some chance that it might be used for currency reasons. And here's another Spence prediction. Amazon launches its own crypto coin.
Yeah, that could happen. Yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen from that. Because if they launch their own crypto coin, they can tie it into like having their own currency, which fits in well with Dr. Evil's plan of being a non-nation state, but really being a nation.
What a total arsehole that bloke.
Yeah, but you can't listen. You can fight it or you can accept it.
Yeah,
I'm saying, that's another question.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm not liking it won't make it go away.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you there, but he's still a bloody total arsehole.
Well,
Like,
maybe they'll, hey,
you
as
know.
Heather would say, hey, maybe there'll be a little rocket accident and something will happen to him.
I feel a bit ashamed with what I said there, actually. Andrew did say I shouldn't have said that, and he was right. You know, I feel a little bit because I don't want to wish him ill, but I still think he's a total arsehole.
Now that, you comparing who you're going after, like there's certain people you go after, you'll probably be fine. Some people I would be very careful about going after if I were you.
Well, I just think he's a total douchebag of the highest order, but there we go. That's my own opinion. It's a free country to some extent, isn't it? John is hopefully John will be returning. But on to the next story. Colorado becomes the first state to require state and local government websites to meet accessibility standards. Oh my God, we're in 2021 and
it was only passed 32 years ago.
Oh,
31 years ago.
Jesus
20,
Christ.
Yeah, 31 years ago.
This is another story that just keeps dragging on forever. What do you reckon about this one, Chris? My God. We're in 2021 and we're just the first state to...
I think in the United States, the states really have to lead. So having Colorado, just the government lead and work on accessibility and require it. I don't really have much to say, but this is just super important. It's not necessarily accessibility has a lot of room to grow in WordPress for it to be easier for developers and website builders and agencies to make things more accessible. We all need to level up there. But yeah, I'm glad it's happening. I wish there was something we could do to speed it up.
This is actually, believe it or not a WordPress problem, because if you read in the last paragraph, it says all of the state agency websites are currently running on Drupal. The state has 4,200 active local governments. So the problem is this: I have agencies who come to me for advice, or sometimes we represent enterprise who have unfortunately stumbled into the sort of like Microsoft Windows 95 problem of we needed to get licenses and support, so we're still using something from when Bill Clinton was president because we can't afford to move. And the problem is that's at the basis of a lot of this momentum. If you have federal governments and agencies who move like molasses, and they themselves are using stuff that was built on Drupal, God knows when, and they can't afford $1 million to have a developer come move a comma, which is what they can charge with Drupal, then like they're not suffering. It's like the rich people who still have water coming out of their faucets aren't caring in California to build like a desalinization plant. This is where we suffer as human beings, because we always act reactionarily when it gets beyond the point of comfort for the people who make choices or have the money. And here's an example. I guarantee there's no visually or otherwise disabled people in the decision making of the governments, and it's nice to see somebody's doing it, but I'm not surprised that it's taken 31 years or whatever since the 90s for this to happen. The thing I was talking about yesterday, which is sort of related to this concept, is like, when will the Berlin Wall happen for electric cars and trucks versus gas? What I love about this conversation is that there's this whole array of existing vehicles. No, but here's the metaphor. There's this existing world of cars in the United States, but right now we know the technology exists, and we know the makers are saying they're gonna go electric. All but Toyota, who is arguing that they bet on hybrids, so they're gonna still want little gas combination cars. The question is, will the automakers like Ford go with something like they did 20 years ago, like a truck that gets all the mainstream American men mostly, but women, to buy that cheap electric truck? Because if they did, then everybody else will follow. The gas stations will have half electric charger and all the accessories, and then everybody follows. And it's like this with government. If Colorado or a couple other big states were to change and make everything accessibility enabled, and they showed demonstrable financial benefits, all these other people, would follow. I'll let Jonna. All these other people would follow, because they would say, oh, it'll make me look good. But right now, there's no proof of that. And so there's no financial incentive or political incentive.
Yeah, before I throw it over to John, I thought what you said about Microsoft, because the other world, I think in some ways is even worse, is Salesforce. When you're dealing with them and they're in closed garden and worlds,
There's competitors you can escape off of Salesforce, which is like with WP Fusion. Every day we have Salesforce refugees, I call them. We move them over to Fluent or AC, Active Campaign or something, because you can move it. You lose your automations, you maybe lose your history of tracking, but Salesforce, I say Mark Benioff can afford, as a benevolent billionaire, to do wacky things because his clients are enterprise and they'll pay no matter what. But the entrepreneurs and SMBs in Salesforce, I go, hey, you guys got choice. Let me show you the door. And they move.
Yeah. All right. What did you reckon about this story, John?
So accessibility, I mean, with the websites, I think there's like two issues here. I mean, the root of it is that people who have disabilities or who aren't fully able-bodied are kind of treated like second-class citizens in the US. And you've seen part of that with COVID. I see a lot of people in tech, even like this last week. It's like, oh, this person got COVID. They must have been, had comorbidities. The thing of it is disabilities can happen to anyone. If you're fully able-bodied, it's waiting for you. You could get in a car wreck tomorrow and you could have mobility issues. You could have vision issues. You could have hearing issues. And it's very important that we design for those people first. And accessible design is usually a good design. Now, the problem that I've seen since I started doing web design is a lot of times it's the designers and developers that are telling you to make things inaccessible. When I first started, like a lot of people would have me do things to make the designs inaccessible. This is when I was like subbing for like other agencies.
Yeah.
So I think that it's important that we take the lead in that. Now the states have made this, where Colorado has started this legislation. We all should be doing this. All right.
Yeah, you were breaking up. We got the point. I just wanted to say, when I was dealing with local clients, see, I've almost all my US experience is based in Northern Nevada. I've been here almost 14 years, but solely in Northern Nevada. And Carson City is the capital of Nevada, and it's a small state, and all the politicians, and I've seen it face to face, because unlike California, because it's a small state, you do talk to the governor. You if you go to business meetings, you can meet the governor, the head of statewide departments, and I know how website contracts, how they're done in Nevada, and the level of corruption and what goes on in hiring agencies, web design agencies in Northern Nevada, and how business is done in Nevada. And it was something that I'm very happy that I'm not part of anymore, because it's rather sickening, really, how the deals are done and who the agencies that do those projects and make a lot of money out of them, how they are chosen. It certainly ain't based on their ability or their technical ability. I can totally assure you of that. That is a kind of rather understandable but naive way of how major website projects are paid for, who that does them are chosen, and why they're so. It's one of the reasons why I bring it up. Is I think it's one of the reasons that leads them to be so horrible to those that got some form of disability to try and use these state websites, because I have an understanding of how they were budgeted and what really drives them. And it's certainly like what you said, John, it's got nothing to, their needs are not even thought about. So that's it. What are we doing for time? Let's go on. We better cut story 6. We need to get on with our recommend. Well, do you want to quickly discuss story 6, Brandon?
I think we can do it quickly.
Yeah. So story 6.
We got nowhere to go.
All right. 83%, and it's linked to I think what Chris was saying at the beginning of this conversation. 83. So story 6. 83% of developers suffer from burnout. Haystack analytics study finds. What did you think of this one, Chris?
I think it's very true, and it's definitely true of what I would say some of the best, hardest working developers, and I would expand it not just to developers, but designers, project managers, just web professionals. The big problem comes from a lack of boundaries around work. You know, we used to be able to go into the office and all that kind of stuff, but when you work online and the internet never sleeps, and you're working with clients all over the world, boundaries become much more harder to maintain. Plus, you kind of love what you do, so you just kind of get lost in it. This is all just a recipe for burnout that I've never met somebody who hasn't had to deal with it, who kind of works in this space at some point. And then let's say you become, you get married, or you have a parent, or you have some kind of family emergency or a health issue. It just kind of all compounds together. So it's definitely an issue that is heightened with remote workers in the web space. And my recommendation, which I'll go ahead and throw out now, is Sherry Walling's book. You were mentioning MicroConf. Sherry Walling, Rob Walling's partner there, she wrote a great book called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your Shit Together. And she's also been a big proponent of mental health in the entrepreneur community, and has really helped them work.
I have to try and get her to come on the WP-Tonic show. That'd be an interesting interview, wouldn't it?
Yeah. She's solid, and the book's fantastic.
Yeah, it is. I listened to it on audio book, and it is good. What do you reckon, Spence? Because I think they're kind of spot on with this, because I think it's endemic burnout. What do you reckon, Spence?
You know, this is a reflection. I like how Chris broadened it, and this is a reflection of something that I believe could be related to categories of people in their employment. Like, as an entrepreneur, there's certain levels of mental health issues that I always feel I have to be aware of. And I know people who work in the corporate world, which is where I could never work, have their own issues, the politics and the pressure and so forth. And developers with whom I've associated in the past have their own type of thing. You know, like I joke, but developers hate people, you know, because what they do, it's like they're getting in their way. So I would say this is a really interesting thing to think about in terms of our virtual world, where spending a lot of time by yourself in front of the screen, even when you speak to people, or like I enjoy the show so much, talking in a group, healthy conversations with people, doesn't always mean that your head is in the game. I'll wake up some mornings and feel like a 20-year-old, you know, woo, woo, woo. And other mornings I'll wake up and I'll be melancholy / depressed / anxious / whatever. And I have no freaking idea why. The secret seems to be aware of the fact that this is not unusual, and to seek out whatever kind of tasks or personal interactions or therapies or exercise, whatever works. Don't pretend that it doesn't exist, and don't believe that you're alone, because in today's world, especially like the gig economy, I went out to dinner at a very fancier than normal place with my cousin last night, and it was in the city of Chicago. City of Chicago right now is very weird, because there's almost no restaurants in the city proper that are open, because they can't get people to work there. And the ones that do now have 1,000 times more people jammed in a space, which also makes that weird, because you're looking around like, wow, everybody here, who knows who's got what. So these are things that are in my mind, and I think this is a good thing to continue to talk about, in general, because we're all just human beings and nobody here is immune to it. You know?
Well, before I throw it over to John, my take on this is that there's kind of toxic, especially in the agency freelance service areas. But obviously plugins and SaaS have their own concoction of toxicity, but I'm going to aim this definitely at freelancers and agencies because they're the main people that listen to this show. And I'm not going to blame this all on clients, but because of the way the market works, I come across clients that, they've got the budget, but their unrealistic time expectations are so ridiculous so often, and they're hardly ever met, no matter how hard you try, and you make it clear to them that you're not promising a hard deadline because you never thought their timelines were at all realistic from day one. And it's endemic. It is truly endemic, these unrealistic timelines when it comes to the web industry, Spencer and Chris and John. It's to the core, because what I've found, unless you're doing something that you really have done before, and there's no variable, and you've reduced the amount of outside variables as much as possible, these projects always take twice as long as people think, because especially if there's more and more variables introduced, they just don't understand, unless it's the most easiest simple project. They always take a lot more meetings, a lot more emails, a lot more aggro than people think. What do you reckon, John?
Yeah, that's something that I have struggled with. I think like putting too much on your plate or not giving yourself enough time for like a project to unfold. I think I've been a lot better about, with the time aspect. At least giving enough space to have some fudge room in projects. But yeah, I think with this is a big reason why I can't see myself working for somebody else ever again, is because it's never fast enough. You're never going hard enough. At least
especially in a regional and national agency basis, that's the reality of the environment you're going to be working in. Whatever you do isn't good enough, and it's never quick enough, is it?
Yeah, that's I mean, I think it's a tough thing. If you're running an agency, I think you got to really listen and kind of be tuned in to what your staff is putting out there. I mean, especially after this last couple of years.
Well, I like I say, John, I can only base my experience in Northern Nevada. Right. I know who runs the 4 and 5 leading regional digital marketing agencies. None of them are technical founders. No. They have absolutely no idea really of what goes in. And I know that their expectations, because of their background, are unrealistic. But it goes with the territory, because a lot of these regional agency owners, they have absolutely no idea when it comes to the technical side of it, or they have a joint founder that's the technical person. But that's what I'm basing that on, my experience, John.
Right. No, I feel you. I hear you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go. I think it's been a good discussion. Let's go on to our recommendations of the week. Chris, what are you recommending to the listeners?
I'm recommending that book in the spirit of burnout called by Sherry Walling, called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Keeping Your Shit Together. It's a good read.
And Spencer, have you got something you want to recommend? Spencer, are you?
Oh, sorry, my computer hiccup. Okay, I'll post Chris's thing in there too. So I have, I've already published this publicly, but I don't know where Sally is, but somewhere if she's listening, Sally, I'm officially in the Gutenberg camp now.
Oh, bravo.
And I am posting the link to that's what caused my computer to hiccup, I think, is the Gutenberg pattern block library is sort of officially released. It doesn't have a lot of stuff in there, but here's the deal. I really didn't figure this out. I'm still trying to figure this out. Apparently there's things called reusable blocks, which in Elementor terms would be called a global widget. You create one of them and you can make 50 copies, but you change one and all of them change. Then there's a pattern, which is a series of blocks, but you can copy it and then change it uniquely. But the neat thing is if you go to this library, you can see the inklings of where this is going to go, where you just open up a pattern, right click, copy, paste it in your site. Oh my God. Like, how hard was that, people? Because that I can see immediately the same Hoover Dam metaphor breaking open. At the core of launch flows, at the core of everybody else's stuff, if the core editor makes it just that simple to be like, here's stuff that looks good, feels good, and works with our particular code nuggets, shortcode or otherwise, ta-da! We're all standardized, and at the core, we're all doing the same stuff. And I think that's what's really amazing about this, is that I finally crossed the threshold of believability that we're far enough along to make this actually not only useful, but a bet on this being.
Yeah, I agree with you. You can see where this is going.
It's still a train wreck of interface stuff, but the actual functionality has crossed the threshold.
Yeah, I agree with you. We got a recommendation, John?
Yeah, so this DVD, Putney Swope, this is from 1969. It's a dark satire of the advertising agency world. Iron Man status in here, but you can get it on streaming service as well.
Yeah, that's great. Make sure the links in Slack for us. My recommendation, well, like I mentioned it before, MicroConf are doing a series of what they call local events. They're going to be in the East Coast. There's one in Boston. There's the one in Portland, which I'm going to. There's going to be one in London, one in Austin, and they're doing them during this year and next year. I'll make sure the link where you could buy tickets. Please, I think there's some tickets still left for the Portland one. Please come. Rob and his team do a great event. You'll be mixing with other entrepreneurs with similar attitudes that you find in the WordPress community, and it's great to see WordPress people going to these bootstrap type of events and broadening the people they know and just spread the message. So I'll make sure the link's there. Rob will be joining us next month or the month after that on the Roundtable show again. He's always welcome. He enjoyed it last time. So I think it's time to wrap up the show. Chris, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can find me at Lifter LMS.
All right, it was simple. Uncle Spencer, what is the best place for people to find out?
Thank you. Sorry. WPLaunchify.com or at launchflows.com. But I'm going to say WPLaunchify.com.
Yeah. Thanks, Spence. And thank you for being a sponsor of the show. It's much appreciated, Spencer. John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can go to lockdownseo.com, or you can find the YouTube channel Lockdown SEO.
And it's a great channel if you're looking for a reputable person that knows what he's talking about when it comes to SEO. Go and sample some of John's videos and then give him a consultation, because he really does know what he's talking about. We'll see you next week for another Roundtable show where we have a tongue-in-cheek look at the world of WordPress and tech in general. I'll see you next week, folks. Bye.